And it's Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We have another edition of the Army Football Huddle, and tonight we're going to go through Army's opening game down at University of Louisiana Monroe and preview the home opener on Saturday versus Delaware State. And with us tonight, we have Richard Miller calling in from Florida.
Hi, Ken. Tough game for Army onto the home opener. Got to rebound.
Very good. And calling in from South Jersey, we have former Army football player, graduate class of 1992, and that is Steve Chaloult'. Steve, how are you tonight?
Good evening, Ken.
Good to see you. Appreciate having you with us. And Saturday night, a disappointing start to the season, a game that Army was leading until 6 minutes to go, using the new offense, using a new quarterback in Bryson Daly, and stumbled in the last 2 minutes of the game, giving up a long touchdown run, 62 yards, and then a fumble leading to another quick drive by Louisiana Monroe. Steve, what was your impressions of the game? It certainly was a struggle on offense with 5 turnovers.
Yeah, 5 turnovers, obviously, and if you listen to Coach's press conference after, I mean, he was definitely down a little bit. Definitely had some reflection on that. An Army offense can't handle, really not going to win if they have 3 turnovers. So 5 really was a nail in the coffin. And, we've got to figure out a way to keep the ball off the turf, keep it out of the enemy's hands, and execute what we need to do.
Absolutely. A new quarterback in for Army, Bryson Daly. Bryson played last year, mostly fourth quarter, end of game duty, but went in all the way through spring and through August practice. Reputation as a good runner, and really had some good moments, but seemed to struggle. He had ran 23 times for 67 yards, less than 3 yards a carry, and it was 5 of 11 throwing for 121 yards, but 2 interceptions. How would you evaluate Bryson Daly's opening game?
Well, I mean, we didn't score a touchdown on offense. We were in the red zone a number of times and didn't convert. We put the ball in the other enemy's hands too many times, and quite frankly, I thought we ran the ball too many times with the quarterback. So I would say that there's a lot to be improved upon, a lot to work on from his aspect. It was the first time really watching this new offense in a full-time capacity against a legitimate defense, or just a defense in general, other than our scout team. And it was kind of interesting with the play calling. I was a little shocked that he ran the ball so much. I mean, I thought this offense was going to be put into place to run the option from the shotgun, and we were still plagued with our inability to get the ball outside and to option that direction. So, I mean, the plays that we did, the jet sweep that we got outside, Dejan, we got, 35 yards or so on that. It was a great play. But we still were plagued with quarterback, fullback, quarterback. And then we sprinkled in an interception in there as a change. So it was a little bit of a, I was shocked that it looked so much like last year's offense, just from 5 yards deeper.
Steve, when you talk about the shotgun and being 5 yards deeper versus the quarterback being under center, I guess that you could say the shotgun helps if you're going to pass, gives the quarterback a second longer to look at the defense and be set to throw. What's the advantage of being in the shotgun when you do have a run-oriented offense?
Well, I think it's predicated a lot towards the RPO or the run pass option. And if you watched last year at Wake Forest quarterback, and he was riding the running back a long time while watching out there. It just gives him a little bit more time to see the routes develop a little bit for the receivers to get off of, if they have any type of press coverage, and get out into their routes. It gives them a little bit more time on that. So there's an advantage, obviously, for the quarterback who's already back there, already standing straight, got a good vision of the field, and can watch the receivers start to get open. I mean, receivers are generally, if they're given enough time, will get open. I mean, it's unfair for a defensive back to do that because the receiver knows where they're going, what the route progression is. So, having more time will get you there. The disadvantage of it, in terms of what we do is, we're generally a downhill running team, get that ball into the line of scrimmage. I talked a lot last year about denting the line of scrimmage, where the guard, the tackle, the center, if they dent that front side, that fullback is already going to be falling forward for 3 yards because we're on the attack going in there. If any type of penetration happens, that blows up the option plays when you're coming out of a snap situation. But when you're running a shotgun, you just got a little bit more time with that. So there's pros and cons of it. We haven't been running it long enough for us to have our timing down as well as we need to. And hopefully this week's game against Delaware State is the scrimmage we needed, right? I mean, against a different opponent, and for us to get a little bit more of our timing down. In college football, we don't get the scrimmage against an opposing, team. So this could be that's going to happen for us. I mean, I'm not holding my breath that Delaware State's going to be a tough team for us. They lost to a Division II team last week. So, but I'm thinking it will help us get some confidence and get some timing down under a real life defensive team. So we'll see how we come out of this game.
Okay. Looking at the Army rushing game, as I said, Bryson Daly, 23 carries, 67 yards. Coach Munkin in the press conference today said that a lot of those carries by Bryson Daly might have been pitch outs to other backs, and he decided to hold on to the ball. Is that just a tendency of when you're in doubt in an option offense to just run it yourself as a quarterback?
It's really, it comes down to a confidence thing. And the more confidence you get, the more you're willing to wait and to let it develop. And to, what you'll hear in the option a lot is eliminate the pitch man. So as you're coming down the line of scrimmage, or you're coming down parallel with the line of scrimmage in the shotgun sake, you want to put that defender, that defensive end, that outside linebacker on an island where they have to choose between you or the pitch back. And then hopefully you can get that ball outside if he commits to you. Now, it's a game of chicken at that point, right? So you're really kind of pressing that issue, and you want to eliminate that person where he can't do both. Now, it takes a lot of confidence with your pitch relationship, and takes a lot of confidence you as a quarterback to get that ball outside and to let that go, because that ball could ultimately end up on the turf. There's a lot of good things have to happen for that to get out there, for them to catch it and then move up the line of scrimmage and down the field. But when it happens, it's a beautiful thing. So I just don't know if he didn't have the confidence. He wasn't eliminating that pitch key. He wasn't running downhill to press the issue, or he just didn't have confidence to get that ball out in the right place. But we have to start stretching that field and do that option to make sure that's working.
Very good. Now, other rushers for Army: Ajan Marshall, 2 carries, 43 yards. Hayden Reed, 10 for 29. So Hayden Reed's getting a lot of work. Miles Stewart, 4 carries for 15, 3.8 a carry. And Jacoby Buchanan, 14 yards and 6 carries. And Tyson Riley, 7 yards and 3. Dwayne Coleman ran once. I think what stands out to me is Jacoby Buchanan, 6 for 14 yards. and Tyson Riley 3 for 7. Not a lot of productivity out of the big fullbacks.
You know, quite frankly, let's call it like it is. This offense isn't predicated to a 265 wink pound fullback. And I say wink because he's probably a biscuit closer to 280. And this is not a bowl you over type offense. And the perfect sequence of events was, you know, midfield, us being 3rd and 2 and getting stopped for a 1-yard gain where we would never get stopped, you know, or we would never hesitate to have to go to a punt on 4th and 1 if we're up against the line of scrimmage. And one of my biggest apprehensions and fears as we went to this offense was 3rd and 2. And I even asked the coaches about it. What do we do 3rd and 2? And one of the things was, you know, and they said Buchanan. And then what ended up happening was we got stopped. And then, you know, coach mentioned that he had a punt, you know, a fake punt called, which I get it, but we run a fake punt every other game. So it's not like, if anybody who scouted us knows, that we have the gumption to do that. And it was the perfect situation. I mean, we went for it on 4th down on our own 20 last year. And we didn't do it this year. And it should be automatic, and it wasn't. And we were going to revert to a gimmick play to do that. I find that, you know, slightly concerning. And, you know, this offense is more predicated to a 195 to 210 pound back that has a little bit of elusiveness, because he's going to be running in space.
Well, Coach kind of talked about that, and you can see that some of the players like Miles Stewart, who's about 210, and Hayden Reed, who's about that size, could be big factors. Now, is this a question, Steve? Well, you got the 2 big fullbacks, you got to use them, but recruiting and player development would look for a different type of player in the backfield of the future. Is that what you see happening?
I mean, obviously, the recruitings of a Dixon or a Buchanan is probably, that's left the stable at this point. Now, Buchanan has such history with us, and he's such a leader that, you know, they're going to give him his shot. But I would suspect that our running backs are going to look more towards a 6 foot, 6'1", 215, 220, maybe even less back on that, with a little bit of speed and elusiveness. And that's what I would suspect in the future for us. You know, the offensive linemen are getting bigger. I was impressed with the freshman center. I think he held his own pretty well. Yeah, he did. And, you know, the offensive line will come together and gel. It's just a matter of how long can they hold those blocks and how elusive we can be at the line of scrimmage. I really, you know, going into it, when Coach went to this offense, and I'd only seen a little bit of tape from Nebraska Kearney on this, I thought for sure that they would move like a Buchanan to an H-back at that point and have them in the offense, but in a more blocking and maybe possible pass catching role as a little bit of a bigger tight end that had the ability to carry the ball on a counter of some sort. But I didn't expect them to have them as a feature back in the backfield, albeit they told them that they leaned down a little bit, but they just don't have what I think is the traditional footwork or speed to be that guy.
Yeah, well, I've seen both in the backfield, and one's lined up in the backfield next to the quarterback. Seemed like Buchanan quite often, and then Tyson Riley was lining up just beyond the tackle as a blocker, and that seemed to be a formation that they were, you know, for a power running game they were using. Looking at Army's passing and the receiving, Liam Fortner, the sophomore we talked to tonight, had a 153-yard reception early in the game. And Isaiah Alston had 3 catches averaged 15.7. Ajon Marshall had 1 catch for 24 yards. And then obviously he had a fumble after that when he had the ball stripped out of his hands. Crucial play in the game. Noah Short had 1 catch. And so Army had some success passing, over 100 yards passing on the day, but what was the actual total? 107 yards, 6 of 12, 8.9 per pass. Some success, but the turnovers really in the pass game really took away the chance for a win. Do you see the pass game as an improvement over last year?
You know me, if we're passing more than 2 to 3 times, that's a bad thing. I mean, my high school football, I played in the triple option wishbone, prep school, college. I played nothing but that, and a good passing game was always the passing game at which we were taking advantage of what the defense gave us. In terms of where we had, I think we have the ability to be effective passing the ball, but we have to establish the run. We really have to establish the run and make sure that this is coming off a play action so that we have some semblance of that the defense doesn't know what's happening with that, because it's, if we're coming straight pass, we don't have the receivers that are going to be able to separate. And we just don't have the offensive linemen have the experience to hold on to those blocks long enough. And then we don't have a quarterback that understands what a pocket feels like and how long you have in a pocket. They have that internal clock that goes off, and they know that they have to get rid of the ball in the end zone, right? And when we had the fumble down in the red zone, he just held on to that ball way, way too long. And he just didn't feel that internal clock go off where he needed to dump that thing in the back of the end zone. He just didn't feel it. And he tried to make a play and then he got stripped. So, it's going to take some time, but it's hard to think that we had quarterbacks that we recruited for the triple option that are going to come out and be able to run a more pro style offense right out of the get go. And they just don't, it's not a part of their DNA either, but I think we can do better than what we did today.
Okay.
Or the other day. Yeah.
Okay. Let's give Richard Miller a shot at, Richard, give us the top 10 results from last week.
Top 10 results from last week. The USC Trojans started their season off with a victory over San Jose State, 56-28. USC is number 5 in the country. Notre Dame defeated Navy 42-3. Number 14 Utah defeated Florida 24-11. Number 48, the defending national champion, the Georgia Bulldogs, were all over UT Martin by a score of 48-7. Michigan defeated East Carolina 30-3. Number 3, Ohio State 23-3 over Indiana. Nevada defeated USC 66-14. Number 7, Penn State defeated West Virginia 38-15. Also, as well as in other games, as well, you have number 10 Washington 56-19 over Boise State. Number 11 Texas 37-10 over Rice. And speaking of 49-13, number 12 Tennessee defeated Virginia. Wait, did I say? Oh wait, that was I think a previous Notre Dame game. The Notre Dame was playing Tennessee State 56-3. Notre Dame is number 13 in the country. Number 15 Oregon defeated Portland State. Believe this score: 81-7. Colorado Deion Sanders 45-42 over number 12 TCU. The upsets of the day in college football.
Very good, Richard. Thank you. Steve, what is your thought? Everybody's commenting on the new Colorado coach, Deion Sanders, has brought tremendous energy to that program at the very least. A lot of transfers in, and he's going to help elevate Colorado in its last season in the Pac-12 before it goes to the Big 12. What do you think of Deion Sanders' efforts so far?
Oh,
sorry about that. I think it's fantastic for college football. I really do. I'm a huge admirer of Deion. I think prime time. He is authentic. He is real. He is, and he gets kids to do what they normally wouldn't do. And I love his approach. And it's exciting because it's kind of disrupting the regular college football direction. And we'll see where it goes. I mean, it can show that you can turn a program around. Now, I mean, it's, one game does not make a sample, right? It's not, but it still, I think it was great. I think it was great for college football. And I think it's, it disrupts how people are going to look at it. And you converse, you look at what ended up with Clemson last night, right? You look at the other side of that, with Clemson and Duke's, starting to make their presence known, and building it their way, and doing it a little bit more, building a little bit more traditionally. So it's interesting, and I like it, and I'm a fan, and I'm going to watch the rest of the season, and I think it's good for college football because there's going to be a lot of eyes on it.
Well, one of the things that now in the vernacular of analyzing a college football game or a preview is how many transfers does the school have on its roster? And we're seeing some schools have immense numbers of transfers. Even Louisiana Monroe had, 70 transfers into the program last year? And that is now a big deal. It's a challenge, though, for the service academies who really can't accept transfers. Is this a big disadvantage for the service academies that they cannot really participate in the transfer portal?
I think it is not as much of a disadvantage. It doesn't change much for them. I mean, they were always off to the side doing their thing with their type of kids. Where it gets to be a disadvantage is if we lose some players to the portal, which Coach Monken has done a really good job with that in talking about the long-term goals and why you need to stick around and why it's important and the job after and all those other things. He's done a phenomenal, masterful job in being able to get that vision out there. But, where it gets tough with scheduling, right? As you start scheduling teams like, when we scheduled UTSA, heck, they were just UTS without even an A at that point, right? So these programs can turn around so fast that you just don't know what you're getting when you're setting them up on the calendar, on the schedule. Because in the olden days, you used to set up 4 games that you knew you could win, 4 games that you had a good chance with, and 4 stretch games that if you did well against, you were really going to have a great season. But it's really difficult. It's really difficult to figure what that 4-4-4 is going to look like if you're scheduling 6-7 years in advance, and all of a sudden there's a conference realignment or a team decides to go portal up and just change the total direction of a program. So, that's where it gets tough, and it gets tough early in the season. Heck, Vegas can't figure out who's who at the beginning of the year. They're picking games just off of last year's reputation. They don't know who's going to be good, and it's going to take 2 or 3 games before they can even figure out the over-unders and the spreads with any type of decency on that. So I think it's we're always going to hold to our own direction on it. Where it gets a little bit funky is, the players that, end up some of the Colorado players ended up just getting pushed out and didn't end up in a place that's equal to Colorado. And that hurts them as a 4-year, scholarship person. There is for every good story, there's bad stories out there with people who are not in school right now because they couldn't find a place to land. So it's you got to look at both sides.
Yeah, that's something we've looked at, both basketball and football. What is the percentage of players going into the transfer portal that end up landing somewhere? And it wasn't entirely 50%. Some players may be pushed into the transfer portal. Others may be looking for grass is greener at another place. Especially in college basketball, we see players now on their 4th school. We covered Iona this past year and watched all their players transfer. And a couple of them, it was their 4th school they were going to be going to. Steve, let's take a look at the Army defense. Louisiana Monroe got 92 passing yards, 14 of 30. And they rushed for 207 yards, 6.5 yards a carry. How do you feel the Army defense did? They were doing real well until late in the 4th quarter when they let up the 60-yard run and then let Louisiana Monroe, go for a pretty quick drive down the field to get a winning touchdown. What was your thought about the defense?
I thought the defense really came ready to play. I was very impressed. One of my big keys to the game was the conditioning battle. And I thought that Army was ready. I thought that they looked like they had that really under control. They didn't look as gassed as they did against Coastal Carolina last year. I thought that they were better prepared physically for that game. But, with the number of sudden changes and the lack of offensive production, something's gonna give, and it happened. And, when you're living in a very high blitz, high risk, high reward type defense like they are, you're gonna leave yourself a slash in the defense. You're going to leave yourself a little bit of an opening. They found it and they exploited it. And, up to that point, and I was even texting with you at that point, Ken, that I felt that we had the game well in hand. We had our foot on their throats in terms of they had players going down with cramps, and we look like, hey, let's take it to it. Let's take it to it. Let's take it to them. And then that play switched, moved momentum very rapidly, gave them hope. And it gave us a little bit of a pause, like, oh no, we've got, they're back in it. And then it went from there. So I thought the defense was well prepared. I thought they moved and hustled, made some big plays. I don't think the offense did any favors for them.
Yeah, looking at the defense, Jimmy Chaloult', the captain, the outside linebacker, had a big game, 7 tackles, 4 solos, and a sack. And then the two senior cornerbacks, Jabari Moore and Cameron Jones, had 11 tackles between the two of them. Trey Sophia, 5. Quinn Hammonds, 4. Coach Munkin was complimentary of the play of the safeties, Quinn Hammonds in particular, and Max Domenico had an interception. Bo Nicholas Paul had an interception. So it seems like the Army's got a lot of veterans on defense. In fact, Coach Woody was talking about that today, that he needs to try to sprinkle in some of the younger players to have them grow. But there's a big difference between the younger players and the veterans. Does that give you the feeling that the defense can be kind of the base for this team and give Army a chance to win on most games?
I mean, I think that they're going to be the leaders of the team this year so far, until the offensive line takes over and the offensive line's got to start putting, the team on their shoulders. And we've got a lot of veterans on the offensive line too, and they need to really take the charge and make it their responsibility for the time of possession, get that first down, make sure that we're executing so that we're having some meaningful drives so we can give the defense a rest, because the defense can only go so long. And they look like they were really well prepared, and they fly around. And I was impressed with our defensive back play. I mean, they made some really strong plays on the outside where they were being blocked, and they still broke through and made tackles. And they played impressive. So, but you can only go for so long. And like I said, we're going to need to make sure that the offense is starting to bring forth some time of possession and some fruits, so that we take a little pressure off the D.
Okay. Let's see if we can hear a little bit from a question I asked Coach Monken today in the press conference. We can get this to play. Well, I may not be able to get it tonight. We asked Coach Monken about the development that Southern Methodist University was leaving the America Conference and creating an opening, and that some of the national college football analysts were suggesting that Army would be a good fit for that spot. Obviously, Navy is in the America Conference. It's a bit tamer league now since Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston have left for the Big 12. And it might be a decision that would have to be made fairly soon, maybe in a matter of weeks. What's your thought on that decision? If Army's invited to join the American Conference with Navy, what would be your thought on if that's a good idea or not?
Well, there's got to be a difference in my thought between whether it's a good idea versus whether it's a necessity. And right now, I think it's probably more of a necessity than it is a good idea for us. I mean, we have the ability to play multiple teams and set up our schedule in a way that's, both fluid and advantageous, but also get some other really great teams to get exposure. But if we start getting to these mega conferences and they start dictating conference play late in the season, it may be very difficult, if not impossible, for us to figure out a way to fill that schedule later in the season. And we don't want to be filling it with a bunch of FCS schools instead of having, legitimate opponents. So, it may become where it's just a necessity that we're a part of a conference. And, I don't know what an American Conference does for us. I mean, we've got a TV deal, the same one that Navy has. I don't know, what it does. It gives us common opponents on a regular basis for them to be able to scout us. But now that we're running a more traditional offense, I don't think that nuance provides us any advantage anymore. So we're just going to have to, if we do, we're just going to have to nut up and play hard football week in and week out. And we saw against Conference USA how difficult that was during that era. But we may not have a choice.
And it's just really dictated on being able to schedule the teams that you want to schedule. I know Coach Monken seemed to offer that view that he preferred to stay an independent, but it could be a necessity, and it could be a necessity at this point, which indicated, kind of confirmed there's some discussions going on. So something for Mike Buddy and General Steve Gillen, the superintendent, to look at. And so we will see. It could happen sooner than later that a decision will be made. Okay, let's before we go through our picks for Delaware State, Richard, why don't you tell us what are some of the top games coming up this weekend?
Some of the top games coming up this weekend. This Saturday, number 12 Utah will be taking on Baylor at 12 noon. Also, you have, let's see, you have, of course, the game that I will be also focusing in on, the Army game when they will be playing Delaware State in their home opener, 12 noon on CBS Sports Network. Also, you have for this for the Saturday in college football. Also, you have Alabama taking on South Florida. That will be at 3 o'clock. South Carolina and number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs. That will be a 3:30 game. San Diego State taking on number 16 Oregon State. That will be a 3:30 game also. Prime time at night, Pitt will be taking on West Virginia. That's a 7:30 game. At 10 o'clock, Colorado State will be taking on Colorado. And also, let's see, what other games are? What other games? Vanderbilt will be taking on UNLV at 7 o'clock. Also, you have, am I reading this right? Wait, is that, that's week 3, pardon me. No, pardon me, wait. I think it was reading week 3 by accident. Okay, here's week 2. Number 1, Georgia will be taking on Ball State at 12 noon. Number 10, Notre Dame will be taking on NC State at 12 noon in an ABC game. Number 12, Utah will be taking on Baylor. That will also be at 12 noon. Army will be taking on Delaware State. That will be also at 12 noon. Miami and Texas A&M, 3:30 ABC. Michigan will be number 2. The Michigan Wolverines will be taking on the UNLV Running Rebels. Let's see. Also, a big game tonight. At night, Wisconsin will be taking on Washington State. That will be a 7:30 game. Also, you have, let's see, Auburn taking on California at 10:30 late game. Number 4, Florida State will be taking on Southern Miss. San Diego State will be taking on UCLA also at 7:30.
Very good, Richard. Appreciate it. Steve, let's go back to conference realignment for a moment, as Richard was pointing at the game between Washington and Wisconsin. The utter demise of the Pac-12 conference had been in business for well over 100 years, with Cal and Stanford being approved and being admitted to the Atlantic Coast Conference, along with SMU. What did you think of that move and its implications?
Well, I think there are a lot of implications. Well, we've talked about this before, Ken, is about, it's going to come a time where that's not sustainable for other sports, obviously, right? You're not going to be going from Cal to play, against Florida State for volleyball on a Thursday night. It just doesn't work. So,
but they're going to have to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, they are, and they'll probably have to do some sort of an East Coast swing and play 4 or 5 different colleges while they're East, just to make that work. And Mike Buddy has really vehemently defended the fact that he's not going to be putting people on the road. That's why the Patriot League is so very good for what we do, because we've got such a high academic issue and we have to survive through that. But, there's going to be a lot that's going to settle over the next couple of years when all this realignment happens. And there's got to be, and what will probably end up coming out of it will be some sort of a basketball league and a football league. And there'll be pockets of alignments that will happen so that, the teams can figure that all out. It's going to be definitely interesting. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Every time I watch a Big Ten game and they show that thing of the earth where they kind of rotate across the United States and show all these teams pop up, it just doesn't make any sense. And when you look at how they're aligned, going across, teams like Purdue versus like Illinois, and what schedules they have in their, and they're pretty close to each other in terms of geographically, but they have two very different schedules because one's on the east, one's on the west. It makes for some very interesting outcomes coming here in the future.
And then you have some other commentary. I was reading that with Stanford and Cal joining the ACC, that it could initiate Florida State and Clemson leaving and going to elsewhere because they feel like they're sharing money that they don't have to, or TV money, not to mention the travel, because they're two schools that have options because they're the size and stature of their programs. Do you think that would give them the option or the motivation to try to get into the SEC?
I mean, I think that would be, the SEC is going to end up being the premier conference, and they've been the de facto leader in the clubhouse with most of the national championship talk and everything else. So everybody's going to really push to try to get to the SEC. Clemson, minus last night's performance, is a team that you would think could fight and play in the SEC. And Florida State is starting to have a resurgence that they could do that. And Miami would be another team that might have some chops in that type, although they haven't played as well as recently, but they definitely have the pedigree to be, part of something like that. And it'll be interesting to see. I would think that they probably would do that.
Well, that's a conjecture. But as you said, these schools all have many athletic teams they have to find a home for. And the other factor I always say, and we follow a lot of college basketball, is the college basketball tournament still makes a tremendous amount of money. And there's a lot of motivation to try and keep it intact. Despite all of the changes that happen in football, the NCAA basketball tournament funds the NCAA, but breaking it up into a basketball tournament that would feature on one side the football schools, and then on the other side being some of the football schools and everybody else, all of the Providences and St. John's and Marquettes and Gonzagas that have had a lot of success. Even UConn, would probably not find its way into a Power 5 league or a Power 4 league in the near future. You might have more of the best teams are outside the world of the top college football leagues. We do a lot of basketball coverage, so I'm always thinking about where basketball fits into this. And so anyway, let's finish up with a discussion of Delaware State. We heard Coach Woody talk today a little bit about their offensive coordinator. A fellow came in a year ago from Howard. So he could tell from the one game that the new offensive coordinator at Delaware State had done that they were still trying to find their way in trying to attack the perimeter. And a lot of pulling linemen is what he said he saw in the game films. Any thoughts on Delaware State coming in from the MEAC?
I have no idea what they run, who they are, I didn't even know they had a team until it ended up on the schedule. So it'll be interesting to see, can we stay up? Can we get fired up for them? I think Coach will have them fired up to play. And can we get some really good reps against this team? We've got to get some really good reps, stay healthy, and try to work on some of our timing. I don't know very much about this team at all. The first time I'll ever see them play in my lifetime will be Saturday, and probably the last time I ever see them play is Saturday. So we'll see how it plays out.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's go through our predictions. And Richard, what do you think the score is going to be when Delaware State is the guest at Mikey Stadium on Saturday?
This is going to be a redemption game. Army's going to win. I'm going to go 31-14 Army.
31-14. Okay. Steve, do you think this is going to be a big confidence boon or opportunity for Bryson Daly?
I think it will. I think they will get some time for the second and third string quarterbacks to get some time in and play. I think the defense will dominate this game, and I think we'll come out at 56-6 is where I think we'll be on this thing.
Is that 2 field goals or a missed PAT?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I would agree with you. I could see this being a lopsided game. Army needs a win. They're coming off a disappointing loss. They want to, a lot of reasons to play well in front of the Corps Cadets. Delaware State, a MEAC team, an HBC team, and trying to grow their program. I'm going to go and I'm going to split the difference. I think it's going to be, I'll go 42-10. Army getting their first win of the season. So it'll be good. Hey, I want to thank, we have a new sponsor for CaMMVetsMedia, and that is the 27-time world champion New York Yankees. And they have a homestand this week. And on Sunday, they're going to give out replicas of their championship ring from 1998. And Richard, you know who has one of the real thing from 1998?
You mean one of the players?
One of someone that we have mentioned on this show tonight.
Mike Buddy. Mike Buddy?
Yeah, it was a pitcher on the 1998.
A relief pitcher.
So if you are able to go, they have Old Timers Day Saturday, which I usually go to. It's unfortunate it's the home opener. Normally they have their Old Timers Day more in July or earlier in the year. But Sunday they're giving out a replica ring from the 98 world champions, one of the best teams in Yankee history. And but Mike Buddy has one of the real
best, the best, Ken, I think. 125 wins.
Yeah, now it's a good one. Steve, you follow any baseball?
I don't want to get our sponsors upset with us, but I've been born and raised a Red Sox fan. So yes.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
I grew up in Maine, so I'm a New England guy.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I want to thank you both for joining us. Richard Miller, our producer director, and Steve Chaloult from the class of 1992, and a former Army football player, offensive lineman. Thank you both. And again, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the 27-time world champion New York Yankees. How nice is that to have the Yankees sponsor your program? And we have a few others that are coming down the line. But anyway, get out to Mikey Stadium on Saturday, 12 noon start. West Point Band will start their pregame performance at about 11:30. So you want to be in the stadium, in your seats by 11:30, and enjoy the West Point Band, the national anthem, the march on of cadets, and the cheers that the Corps will do. And then if it's a nice day, there'll be a parachute jump before the kickoff. We'll have coverage starting at 9 o'clock, streaming the parade of cadets. The full parade of cadets down on the plain. We'll have some time in Black Knight's Alley, and then we'll be covering the warm-up of the players starting at about 11 o'clock. And then, as I said, the West Point Band will start their performance at 11:30. You can watch it right here on CaMMVetsMedia on Facebook. So thanks again, everyone, for watching, and we'll look forward to being at the home opener on Saturday. Thanks again for watching.